Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of dentistmetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Do you count down the seconds on the clock until you can go home? Are you feeling burned out with all the work you're putting into the practice? Do you feel like you don't have time for anything else? If you're like most dental practice owners, you probably just answered, yep. Look, now everyone has a different reason for starting a dental practice, and while it is incredibly rewarding at times, it's also a never-ending grind. Make no mistake, running a successful practice is hard work, but it doesn't have to consume your every waking hour. You can have successful practices while still having time for your relationships, watching sports, hanging out with your friends, or pretty much anything else you like to spend your time doing. My guest today, Dr. Justin Short, is a living proof. Dr. Justin owns a very successful practice in the St. Louis area and is also the founder of the lifestylepractice.com, where he shares his tips on how to maximize productivity and break free from the never-ending grind. For the last several years, he's been obsessed with how to grow his practice while still having a work-life balance, and I think you'll find that his approach to work very refreshing. And I know there's a few things you'll be able to apply to your own practice. So here are just a few things you're going to learn in today's episode. How Dr. Justin works an average of 2 days a week while still running a very successful dental practice. The secret to work-life balance, and it's not what you think. How Dr. Justin doubled his practice revenue in less than 5 years. Why Dr. Justin is so passionate about changing his patients' lives and how it helps him grow his business. And Dr. Justin's self-improvement philosophy and how you can apply it to your practice, and much, much more. And so at the end of the episode, you'll also learn how to get Dr. Justin's free report, 5 things you don't need to have a very successful dental practice. I've read the report myself, and it's jam-packed with actionable insight. So be sure to listen to the end of the episode to learn exactly how to get access to that. Now, here's my interview with Dr. Justin Short. Hello, ambitious dentists. Today, I have with us someone who is a highly productive dentist who is all about work-life balance, so much so that he averages working, get this, 2 days a week. This 2 days a week is his average of how often he works. He actually, he works when the weeks that he works, he typically works 3 days a week, but he takes 8 to 10 weeks off in the year, which is, I know some people are in their heads thinking, how is that possible? I'm working 5 days a week and, things may or may not be getting done. And I feel like I'm always, trying to catch my tail. Well, today's guest is for you guys. So today's guest is Dr. Justin Short from the St. Louis, Missouri area. He is the owner of Rapport Dentistry. He is also the founder of the lifestylepractice.com, which is where he has talks about how he runs his practice, how he makes this crazy thing called the dental industry and being a dental practice owner meld with actually wanting to live your life and be able to do things with your family. He gets to spend a lot of time with his kids. We were just talking about it whenever he's not working, which, for some of us, that would be amazing. For some of us, you may not like it as much. You may want to get away. So Dr. Justin, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks, Jonathan, for having me. Thanks for that intro. You made me sound a lot cooler than I really am.
I wish I could feel cooler about myself for doing the intro.
I'm going to take it.
Awesome. So, whenever I'm on your email list, you got a fantastic email newsletter you send out. You give really great information on it. And I urge everyone that's, listening right now to look it up, get on it. He he doesn't bombard you with emails like some people. When he does send something out, it's very relevant, it's very helpful, and I've really enjoyed it. He's actually, some of the newer ones are having actual, like pseudo interviews with they're not pseudo, they are interviews with other people, like friends of the podcast, like Dr. David Maloney was someone that you interviewed, and it's just in the newsletter rather than it being something you have to listen to, which is a nice change of course for some people.
Yeah, it's been great. We started that in last summer time, and it's been a lot of fun. Got to talk to a lot of dentists, and I've had a lot of great interaction. Some dentists have joined up, been killing it, and it's just been a lot of fun. Something I've always wanted to do, and finally last year decided, you know what, this is the year. I'm sick of waiting. I kept waiting for the perfect time, and just said, hey, we're gonna go for it. And since then, it's been a fun ride.
Awesome. So tell me about your story. I mean, where did you graduate from college? How long have you been in dentistry? How did you get your practice? Did you acquire it? You started up? What's your story?
Sure. So I graduated from St. Louis University with a degree in chemistry and got into dental school right after that. I went on to SIU, School of Dentistry in Illinois. It was a good thing because I hated chemistry. So I have no idea what I would have done. But I worked as an associate for a short time before buying my own practice, just a little bit under a year out of dental school. And then I got in, and through the help and mentorship of some others, really built that practice up, built some good equity, and then decided to purchase another practice that I wasn't going to work at. I was just going to have associates, and I was just going to rake in the bucks. And it didn't work out exactly like that. I've learned a lot in the last 8 or 10 years since that's happened. But long story short, I ended up selling the first practice where we had built some equity up. I jumped in the second one, basically said if it's going to go down, it's going to go down with me at the helm. And it's been there since 2011, and every year it gets better and better, and enjoying it for the most part, most days.
So you actually acquired both of those practices then, yeah. And you thought you were going to be able to have one, and it would just be like a passive income stream or something like that?
Yeah, I think I acquired both, and I was young when I bought the second one, and looking back, I know I'd do it a million times different than the way I did. So I wasn't the best leader at the time, and just I think just underestimated what it would need, what it would take to make it a worthwhile investment. So if I would ever do it in the future, I wouldn't be as concerned, but I would do it totally different.
Trial by fire, huh?
Yep. And I'm all for trial by fire. I've been ahead of a lot of fires, so it's so far so good. We've made it through.
Yeah. So tell me about so I'd love to ask questions about both of them, but I don't think we'd have enough time in the day to get through all the questions I'd have about both the acquisitions. So let's focus on the one you're in now.
Okay.
Describe to me what that practice looked like before you bought it, and like what you kind of turned it into.
Sure. So when I first bought it was 2009. I hadn't been out of school too awful long. I graduated in 2005. It was
kind of a scary time. It's kind of a scary time. We were kind of coming out of the recession, but a lot of people still, were still not sure. No one knew for certain if we were going to completely come out of it.
Yeah, it was definitely a trying time, I'd say. Even back then, and still even more today, I don't put a ton of stock into the stock market. The economy. Like, my feeling is like the economy is going to discipline you if you're not ready. If you're not prepared.
Sure.
So, but I purchased that practice. The dentist was retiring. It was doing about 600, maybe 650,000. So I bought it. I put a new grad in there right from school. Brilliant idea, and just underestimated or overestimated. I think their abilities. It was my fault, not their fault. I kind of just threw them to the wolves, thinking, "Hey, you're a dentist. You should know how to run a business." And
You did
obviously.
it. You did it. Why can't they do it, right?
Right. Uh, so I ended up having to let him go. He was a great guy. And then I ended up hiring another dentist. And over the course of, I'd say, a year and a half, the business had dropped to, I think it was like 425,000 at the end of 2010. So by that point, paying the staff and lease and all your overhead, I was losing money. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking money from my practice that was doing real good, putting in the other practice. Then I jumped in and started working both practices. And it took me about a month to realize I don't want to do that. So I put the one we had some good equity in. We sold that. I jumped in. And this last year, 2016, we did a little over 1.5 million. And I get to take a lot of time off to do what I want, spend time with my family, hunt, and work on the lifestyle practice, which has kind of been my passion for the last year and a half.
That's awesome. So how much were you doing in revenue in the practice that you sold whenever you switched gears to focus on the new practice?
So we had, over the course of 4 years, we built that practice up. I purchased it, it was doing around 600,000. We built it up to a little bit over 1.2. And during that time, we had decreased working 1 day a week. So it went from 4 days to 3 days. We only had 3 ops. It was in a small town, about 45 minutes outside of St. Louis. Totally different demographic from the practice I'm in now, which is in a more affluent area of St. Louis. So, we had almost double the size of that practice. So we got to cash in on some of that revenue and took the burden out of the scariness out of jumping into the other one. I mean, I knew anything could happen, but I knew the skills I had developed from working with people and learning and doing my thing. Like, I knew we could go in there and turn it around. So that's what we did, and thank God it worked out.
Yeah. So turning. Whenever I have people that talk to me about acquisitions pretty often, I probably look at 4 or 5 different acquisition opportunities every week, and I see a ton of people coming to me with that what you just described, the $600,000 to $700,000 practice. It's been doing that for forever. The challenge is getting that thing to turn on its ear and actually start going back up. What is your approach in those practices? Like, how do you make the jump? Because you did it twice. You went a 600,000 up to 1.2, and you did 600,000 up to 1.5. And I believe you told me that the one that you're in now is 5 operatories. Is that correct?
Correct. We actually just moved offices about 2 years ago, the end of 2014. So a little bit over now, or carry the one. Yeah, a little bit over. And before that, we were 3 operatories. When we moved, we were again doing right around 1.2. And then we jumped up once we added the extra operatories. For me, both times, that's where we started to hit a plateau. That's where our growth started to go down with 3 operatories.
Yeah, your capacity for just physical space of getting patients in for the day was just capped out.
Yep. So we were slammed all day long. But again, I was only working 3 days a week, so it made it, doable. I'm the mindset, I'd rather bust my butt hard 3 days a week than spread it out over 4 and 5. It could be tough days, but Wednesday at 5 o'clock when I'm done till Monday morning, it's worth it.
So I've got a bunch of questions. First of all, how do you go from 600,000 in revenue to 1.2, 1.5 in 5 years? That's the one that I hear people and they're out there thinking right now. They're listening to this. How does one do as you do?
Right.
Probably a rap song about that, but I can't think about that.
I'll do that afterwards.
Yeah.
So, I think the number one, there are a bunch of different key factors that we go through in the lifestyle practice. But for me, I realized early on, at least for me, that dentistry, or my business of dentistry, is 80% people, 20% dentistry. Our focus, we take the focus off just teeth and put it back on the people. Relationships for us is key. Building those relationships, treating people. Our key mantra every team meeting we have is that I want to leave with my team is that when a patient walks out of our door for the day, we want them leaving feeling better about themselves, not just feeling better about our office. And I think, that gravitates, that resonates with people. And, and I think next, after that, I think it's a lot of its vision. I had a friend, a buddy of mine from dental school, ask kind of same similar question. He had seen the growth in both practices. He knows me as Justin from the block, not dental business runner. And he asked, like, what changed? What did you do? And sometimes it's hard for me to quantify or explain, because when I first got my first dental coach, almost 10 years ago, Bill Blatchford Solutions, my entire mindset changed. You couldn't necessarily walk into my practice from day 1 to day 200 and see a huge difference, but everything had changed because my mindset had changed. I go in now, like, my vision is my business. My business is a means to an end to accomplish the vision I have for my life. And that's how I look at it. Do I try to treat my team excellent? Yep. Do we try to put our patients first? Of course, like every dentist does, I think, for the most part. But at the end of the day, like, what gets me up and makes me go to my office is not a love of teeth. Even though I like my profession, I'm thankful and blessed that I get to be a dentist. But what gets me up and gets me going is the vision that I have for my life and where I want that business to take me. And so I think that staying engaged, every patient, every day, knowing how to talk to patients, knowing how to present treatment, I think those are our biggest factors. And having a well-trained team. I went in there day one and I worked with my team over and over and over. In the beginning, we would meet once a week, once every 2 weeks for 2 or 3 hours. And I would train them step by step. This is what we say. This is how we present. This is how we answer the phones. This is how we do this. And now they've all been with me for a while. I don't have to put in that time anymore. Most weeks I leave the office at 5 and I don't even think about my office until Monday at 9. But it wasn't always like that. We took massive action, put in the work in the beginning, and it's paid off. Where I think what I see with corresponding with a lot of dentists is they put that off. They don't want to put in that ton of action. It's kind of like, whatever happens has happened. I hope we increase a little bit each year. That's not for me. That's not what I wanted for my life. That's not what I wanted for my business. So.
Perfect. So you went through and you made sure that your team members understood your mission and vision, your core values, and that you were treating all the patients in the right way. As far as the numbers, and if you aren't, I know a lot of doctors that are great at business that aren't super into their numbers, but as far as just the numbers, do you have a lot more patients than you did back then? Has the practice grown, or do you do more dollars per revenue per patient? How is your means to that end as far as your business model?
Sure. And putting it simply, I really think all the above. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to rely on any one of those factors to grow my business. Not growing my business is not an option. I want to dominate every aspect of that. We get more patients right now. We get probably about 50 a month, and I send out 3 mailers a year to like 5,000 or 10,000 homes in the area. We have the most 5-star Google reviews in all of St. Louis, which that's a big one that I'm really working with my clients in the lifestyle practice. Is that, man, I ask every new patient that comes in the door, how'd you hear about us? How'd you find us? We're so glad you're here. And I would say 80% of them nowadays mention your reviews. And it's cheap, man. You just got to ask, but most people don't want to ask.
Yeah, we got a lot. I've been saying for a while that with more and more frequency, when I talk to doctors, I ask even my people that are coming in for accounting class to say, how are you doing with new patients? Where are you getting them from? And it just with such more and more velocity and more frequency, Oh, reviews. It's here. It's only going to be more important as time goes on. So being in that number one spot is really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, either you embrace it or you're going to be left behind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's never fun to, especially it gets easier as you do it, but it's never fun. No one wakes up in the morning and is like, man, I want to go ask a patient at the end of their appointment for a review or to send me a friend or a family member. I mean,
Sure.
but to me, if you want to dominate your market, that's what you've got to do. You've got to make those hard decisions, do those awkward things that become less awkward the more you do it. But we have a system in place. I mean, we know when we're going to ask for it. Every new patient that comes in, unless you just got that random jerky patient, which we all have sometimes, and you're like, this person's just not vibing with whatever we're putting out there. So,
yeah. And then you just don't ask that person.
right,
Right?
exactly. So you skip them. But other than that, we have a system in place. We ask for them, and we try to deliver. I mean, we don't try to give them crappy service and not treat them good or give them the best experience and then ask for a review. That would be chumpish. But we try to do the best we can. We try to make it the best experience we can, and then we ask for it.
So that's how you go with new patients. How do you make sure your patients keep coming back, so you don't have, so that you have a low attrition? Because if you're growing, I'm assuming that's one of the keys is making sure they're still coming back.
Sure. I think it all comes down to the customer experience and having them leave feeling better about themselves than when they came in. We will look for ways to compliment them. Not that we're not going to go in and say, hey, I love your shoes if I think your shoes are terrible. Mm-hmm. But we see something, hey, your hair looks good, or hey, I love that shirt, or I love those shoes, or some way, somehow try to build them up. I got friends in my life, I got people in my life, my grandmother, for instance, she's gone now, but I always felt like I was her favorite out of 10 grandkids, because every time I left her house, I felt like a better person. I didn't just feel like, hey, my grandma's awesome. I felt like I'm leaving her house like, man, Justin's a good dude. And you don't always have a lot of people or businesses that do that for you. So that's how we want people to leave, and then hope that comes back to us, and it has. And we definitely don't pressure people. I would say most dentists say they don't. But we try to get on the friend level. It's like, hey, this is what we think you need. You're ready, let's roll. If you're not, we're going to be here. If you want to come and get your teeth cleaned until you're ready, we'll still be here. We still support you. It's not like, man, you don't want to do what we say, then you're out. So, and I think it's just knowing that everything counts. Every interaction, when they walk in, what are they presented with? What does it smell like? In our fridge up front, we have beer and wine. It's not like a bar. We're not doing tequila shots a lot. But rarely do people ever take the beer or wine. Sometimes they do. After they're like, hey, I'm going to take this home and relax a bit. But I would say probably 70% plus of our new patients will comment on that to some extent. Like, wow, can't believe that. You're crazy. You're going to get arrested, or that's awesome. Those kind of things. Looking for ways to differentiate ourselves from every other practice. I mean, we've probably got 15 dental practices within a 5 or 10 mile radius of ours. And, we look to see how we can be different from everyone else. So.
Very cool. I love that. That's great. That's, building differentiating factors is a great way to be able to set yourself apart, to where if somebody else goes to another practice now and they're like, well, this is not nearly what I had at the other practice. It's so much nicer. And so do you do fee for service or insurance patients, Medicaid, anything like that?
We don't do Medicaid. We'll do fee for service. We're probably about 90% PPO, 10% fee for service. It may range off of that a little bit, but we're mostly PPO. We put our PPO fees. So when I say like last year, 2016, we produced 1.515 million. That is based off of our PPO fees.
Okay.
One thing I encourage my clients to do, like Like, dude, don't give yourself that false sense of security. Like, man, we're killing it today. We're producing 8,000. Then you look on the back and like, I had to write off $3,000. Like, I told my team, a long time ago, like, I don't want to do that. I want to know what I can collect on what I'm doing, because I don't want that false sense of I'm doing good, but really I'm not, because I'm just kicking it right out the back door. So we take a lot of PPOs. I've thought about going the fee-for-service route, but like, I don't know, just haven't.
Seems to be working for you. I mean, the other way. So as far as so I've got to get an understanding of your practice and what it is you do, and kind of how you go about setting up those differentiating factors. And you're also working with other dentists to kind of help them, figure this out on their own, because so many dentists, they're more service provider minded, they are clinically minded, and they don't think about the customer service aspect of it. From that perspective, like, what is the biggest mistake you see dentists making whenever they're trying to do something like what you're doing? Like they're trying to effectively make their time more efficient, or have a better, be more effective while they're doing the dentistry. Is there, do you see any big, glaring mistakes people make?
I see several. I think some of the intangibles, number one, the biggest thing that I see is having, and I don't want it to sound cliche or altruistic, but not having a vision of where you want this practice to go. It's kind of like, man, I'm going to try to do good today. I hope I do. I hope we hit our numbers. I hope I can make payroll. I hope I can put a few bucks in the bank. Like, that's not what we do. I want to know exactly where we're steering the ship. I want to know where we want to end up at the end of this process. I think uncommon people know how they got to where they are, and they know where they're going from here. And that's the number one thing we start with. What do you want this practice to look like next year? What do you want it to look like in 5 years? What do you want it to look like in 10 years? Okay, we got that figured out. Now let's make a plan to do it. I think I'm not an over treatment planner by any stretch. We're not placing 20 sites of Arrestin on every patient, but I see a lot of dentists under treatment plan. I think it's, for dentists, whatever reason it's harder for them, more stressful, more awkward for them to tell a patient they need a crown versus an 8 surface filling kind of thing. I'm not saying go in and crown everything. That's not our MO, but you've got to have confidence. If you're uncertain as my dentist, I'm uncertain as a patient. If a dentist comes in and I'm the patient, and the dentist is hem-hawing, well, maybe, kind of, sort of, if you want to, you need a crown. To me as a patient, I hear, I don't really need a crown, or B, you're not the person I want doing that crown. So presenting with confidence. If you're not feeling 100% confident, you've got to act like you are. Patients want to know, can you help me? And, can you fix my problems? And I think as us as dentists, we have to present, show them in a way, perhaps with saying or without saying it, hey, you are not going to be cared for any better by any other dentist in this country. And I am the best one to fix your problem. And then we got to deliver. So, I've never had a patient ask me about line angles or bond strengths or, stuff like that. We're dentists, man. Like, we all know that's the case. That's just the bare minimum. That's the entry into the profession. So if you can't get that stuff down, you probably need to do something else. You've got to go above and beyond that, because every other dentist is doing the former.
So the step one is to really have that vision where you're going, and having the confidence to lead the practice there, as well as the patients, not just the team members and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I would say number one is vision. Number two is being the leader. Those are 2 areas that we start on, number one. And I see most dentists not leading their office like they should. And the office is suffering as a result, and at the end of the day. So the dentist is suffering as a result. I think next would be training your team. I always have people, there's a place on our website where people can kind of submit we call it a quiz, but it's basically like a questionnaire on your practice. And I'll read it over. I'll give some thoughts. If you like it, roll with it. If you don't, toss it out. But I always have the dentist rate their team, and so often, eight or 9 out of 10 things I get, they rate their team as a 6 or a 7. And then I'll ask them the next question, what's the biggest problem? And you're like, I can't place implants. Like, dude, that's not your problem.
Mm-hmm.
Implants are not the issue here. Like, the issue is leadership. If you think that it's okay to have a 6 or a 7 team and you want a 10 as a practice, it's not going to happen. Like, you can place all the implants you want. It's not going to work. So being the leader, training the team, and it makes it a lot easier for the dentist. I could not do what I do on the time I spend in the office if I didn't have an amazing team. They're all 10s. But I mean, it's hard. It can be hard to sit down with your team member and say, hey, we need to talk about you doing this, or how you can be presenting treatment better. Because we all know in our mind, they're going to be like, oh, come on, I can't do anymore, and, so we settle. We let them get away with it. We settle for underperformance and try to make up for it on our end by doing something else. And, that's not the way of a leader.
Mm-hmm. So as far as the, this kind of just snuck into my head, that there's, I don't know if I should say their name. There's a consulting company out there that routinely tells people they need to treatment plan 3 times what they want to produce.
Right.
Do you find that to be true in your practice? I mean,
Yes,
is
100%. Okay. The tricky part is you can't go in and make stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't produce a certain amount on a patient if they don't have the work. But I think too often dentists are looking to minimize dentistry or minimize the treatment plan, not treatment plan comprehensively. We get a new patient, we come in, we can see they need 4 or 5 crowns. Well, crap. You're telling yourself, I can't go in and tell this new patient they need 4 or 5 crowns. I'll go to the next door neighbor, tell them, hey, Dr. Short just said I need 4 or 5 crowns. That guy will be like, oh, Dr. Short's full of crap. Even though in their mind they see it too, but they know what will happen if they tell them the same thing. So, it's being able, with confidence, but with sincerity, and showing the patient that you care, all wrapped into one, and building that rapport, but being able to really tell them what they need. I tell people every day, like, hey, I know this isn't what you want to hear. I know this isn't what I want to tell you, but I would rather you be upset with me now for telling you everything I see than 6 months from now you have a big problem, you come back to me and say, Justin, why didn't you tell me? And I have to say, Mrs. Smith, because I'm afraid if I told you, you'd split. You go to the dentist down the street. I adjust for that. I adjust my presentation. I don't go in like a bull in a china shop and say, Mrs. Smith, you need 5 crowns, take it or leave it. But I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to share with them what they need. If it takes us 2 years to get it done, okay, but at least So, I think it's grabbing your cojones sometimes and telling the patients what they really need, but doing it in a systematic way where you don't turn off the patients when you do that. So it's all got to work together.
Perfect.
And everything else around that. By the time I get to my exam, my hygienist has probably already told them almost everything I'm going to tell them. They've taken a picture, they show them, Mrs. Smith, look at this tooth. You see what's going on? You've got a big crack and you've got a big silver filling here. Now, if Dr. Short goes and takes this filling out and puts an even bigger filling in and makes that tooth weaker, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to make that tooth weaker. It's probably going to break. So he's probably going to recommend a crown here. We'll see what he says, but I just want to give you a heads up. So, they'll have those conversations all day long. So I come in, Mrs. Smith already knows what's going on, and it takes a bit of the pressure off me. And once she's heard it from 2 people that hopefully she feels she can trust, it's a much easier sell at that point.
You glossed over it, but I think you used a selling tactic inside of that presentation from the hygienist of saying, what do you think is going to happen to the patient,
Sure.
of allowing the patient to come up with their own, they visualize it in their head, like, okay, yes, that does make sense. And at that point, whenever you come in and reinforce, they've almost self-sold themselves on the need of what they're doing. So that's brilliant. Yeah. So as far as so number one, we just hit the end of the hour. We got started a little bit late. Are you still good for a little bit longer?
Let's do it.
Okay, good. So as far as the next steps for people after they have those three pieces down, which it's so funny because we're we can claim, I don't know if St. Louis, do you guys claim for being somewhat Southern, and you're not below, you're not Arkansas Southern, but you guys aren't.
No,
so
man.
You're not Arkansas Southern, so you're in the middle. But we're you're if you're not a podcast people, or if you're a podcast person, you may not know we do video recordings of these, and we can see each other. And you're a normal guy, I'm a normal guy. And before I started my own business, I always thought the vision and the mission and the culture and all these things that you hear about were just these flu little things that didn't matter. But as you get more and more into business, you start realizing, oh, this does make a big difference over time. But outside of those types of things, what is it, so having the confidence to do bigger case presentation, because I feel so many people, like the confidence piece that you talk about, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, is that people just get so conditioned to coming out of dental school and having, giving diagnosis, and that's all they're doing is giving diagnosis. They're not, communicating to the patient why they need it in an effective manner. And so the patient gets turned off on it, and then the patient says no, and then they get reinforced, no. And so the practitioner starts to kind of, scale back a little bit of like, people keep telling me no, so maybe I need to stop getting so many no's. That's exactly what happens in a lot of practices with perio treatment. Is they get so many no's, they just eventually 3% to 5% of patients come back with perio treatment at the end of the year because they've been told no so many times that they just don't do it anymore because they don't want to be told no anymore, because they just convince themselves that it's my patients are just not the type of patients that are going to accept that. So how does somebody break, either one, break themselves out of that rut, or two, never get themselves inside of that rut?
I think what it comes down, I'm trying to come up with the right wording here.
Sure.
And I don't think it's not the patient's problem or the patient's fault. I'd say if you're getting turned down over and over and over, it's not because not every dentist is getting turned down all over your city.
Sure.
There's some dentists that are killing it. So I would say you need to get better. You need to figure it out, whether it's taking a course on sales or practicing or role playing with your team. Because if you're getting, 3, 5, 10% conversion or something on your treatment planning, it's not anybody's problem but yours. You may not want to own it. My number one rule, one of my number one rules, it's got many number one rules, but number one, never ever fool yourself. And you are the easiest one to fool because you can kid yourself, oh man. And I hear it all the time, like patients in my city all have great teeth. No one wants to do crowns. No one wants to perio treatment. Everyone brushes and flosses perfect. I can't sell this. When there's, 5 dentists down the road that are just smashing it, doing the same exact thing with the same exact patient base, same exact demographic makeup. Don't make excuses. Figure it out and get better. That's what I would say. I have ways to get better, like inside the course and stuff, but practice, get help. I think, so many people would rather go on 5 or 10 years not figuring out, dealing with a 10% case acceptance than finding somewhere to go get help and learning how to do it. No one wants to admit that. Hey, Dr. Short, I'm getting only 5 or 10% conversion. It's not a fun thing to say, but we've all been there. We've all have. If my thing wasn't that, I've got 10 others that, I need to be working on. So, I don't want to oversimplify it, but my number one thing is get better, read books, listen to podcasts, listen to TED Talks, speakers, sales courses, whatever, until you see that going up. Because it's not your patient's fault. It's not your team's fault. If your team's the issue, then it's your fault for not training your team if they're the right people. I've done it in a practice in a podunk little town. I've done it in a practice in a affluent area of St. Louis. I have clients that are in podunks little towns that are killing it, in some in places like New York also. So it's not your patients. My thought would be, if that doctor was having that problem, they could pick up and go to a totally different demographic and they'd hit that same 5 or 10% until they learn how to get better.
Makes sense. So as far as the, you mentioned staff, you mentioned doctors rating their staff. I love that. That's something that, it's funny. You show me a doctor that has a staff that one person has a 5 or a 6, and I'll show you a team that's a 5 or a 6 most of the time, right, no matter what everyone else is doing, because that one person drags everybody else down, especially in, small businesses where it's service-based and everyone relies on everyone else to do their job well. But going into that, tell me how you are able to go to a 3-day-a-week schedule. Number one, from a staff perspective, because some staff members, I know some people have problems, staffing people and it not being a full-time position, or do you have them be there days that you're not? And then second part of that question is, what do you do to be more efficient while you're at the office to be able to get all those procedures done in 25% less time than everybody else?
Sure. I think, again, that's one question that it's got 25 different components.
Sure.
By having a good team that's presenting treatment before I even get to meet the patient sometimes, that helps me. Working on increasing my speed also helps me. But not only do you have to just be a fast practitioner, but you have to be fast at building rapport. I have dentists all the time that, they make excuses. Well, I really like to get to know my patients and build a relationship. You know what, buddy? We all do. And if we're not doing that, our business isn't going to be booming, bottom line. But you don't have to go in there, sit down and have a 15, 20-minute conversation to do that. There are dentists who can build just as good a rapport in 2 minutes that it could take someone else 20 minutes. So there's an area you've got to get better at. Don't make excuses and tell yourself you need 15, 20 minutes to build a rapport, because I don't. And I'm sure I'm no better than you. I delegate as much as I can. My assistants are amazing. They could probably do everything almost as good, if not better than I do. They all know how to talk to patients. They all know how I treat patients. We do CEREC in office. So, we'll do our schedule. I schedule 30 minutes. I'll prep. I'll design the crown. I'm into the next room doing my next thing. So it all works together. And I'm busting my butt. I'm not going to kid. Like, if I'm at the office, I want to be running. Some days I'm not, but I want to be as busy as I can for those 3 days a week. That doesn't scare me. In fact, I'd be much more upset if I was sitting around or had more downtime. I don't need an hour lunch during the day. Take that out of the equation. There's a whole other hour back. I can go grab something 5-10 minutes when I got a break, while CEREC's milling or something else. My staff doesn't need an hour break. We don't do hour lunches. I tell most doctors that, like, oh my God, I'll have a revolt if I would say that. I tell my team, number one, all the time, if you need an hour break for lunch, it's in the office for you, because you're not going to get it. And I don't say it jerky. Like, my team is very well treated. I don't want anybody to think I'm disregarding that, and they're amazing. And I think a lot of dentists, they have the mindset that they just can't go to 3 days a week. You know, I have doctors that work 4 or 5 days a week. I'll have them send me their schedule for a week or two, and I can put it all in 3 days, you know, no problem. But they think they need all this built-in time here and there and there. When you're seeing the same amount of patients I am, you're just taking, you know, breaks, or you're taking twice as long to do it, or you're not efficient in some area. So I think number one is, you know, for me, it's always telling them, like, you know, you can do it. You don't have to work 4 or 5 days a week because that's what everyone else does, or that's what you've always been told. That's what you want to do. Great. I get it. You know, 3 busy days isn't for everybody, and I don't expect it to be. You know, that's my vision. That's not your vision. But if it is your vision, I'm telling you, it can be done. We may have to look and tweak and see where we can improve in areas. But you know, it starts with your team. It starts with being willing to hustle. It's throwing out all the preconceived ideas that, oh, we've got to take an hour lunch here, and Susie needs a smoke break every 2 or 3 hours there. You know, and deciding what you want, what does that business look like, and then we design it from there.
That's awesome. So as far as so number one, do you do assisted hygiene?
No, I do not.
Okay, that was the question when you said about building rapport. So do you kind of help? Do you believe that the hygienists need more time building rapport as well, or do you feel like that's just in your practice that's the best thing?
We schedule an hour for hygiene for adults. We'll do like 30 or 45 minutes for kids. We do an hour and a half for every new patient exam. So we're not a mill, you know, we're not and churning. Like, it's still all about relationships. But by having all those things in line, if my case acceptance goes from 15% or 20%, like another doctor's is doing, to, let's say, 50%, well, I don't have to be cranking and churning patients through. You know, I can see a lot less patients and produce a lot more dentistry. I'm willing to have the conversations. You know, if I'm doing a crown on tooth number 19 and I open up the margin or open up the interproximals and I see decay on the mesial of 18, and, you know, I'll tell the patient, hey, Mrs. Smith, I know you weren't planning on it. We didn't know it was here. We found a big cavity. Do you want us to knock this out? You know, maybe it's OBL or MOB or something like that. So there's another $150 or $200, whatever your fees are. And it takes me 5 minutes added onto that appointment. Another thing we do is I always try to schedule as much treatment as the patient wants to do in that appointment. And we don't push them and say, I know you only want to do 1 teeth, but let's knock out all 4. No, what we do is we tell them every time I have a treatment plan, set them up, kind of go through what we need to do. I let them know, if you want to, we can probably get this all done in 1 appointment. Now, not everybody does it, but no one does it if I don't offer it.
Sure.
So, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I tell them, you know, I know we've got 3 or 4 teeth need to be worked on. If you want, I can knock them all out for you in 1 day. And you don't have to come back. You don't have to get numb multiple times. Some will take it, some are not. But the more I can schedule each appointment without having to turn that room around, without having to call and confirm them, without having to put them on the schedule up front, all those little steps at that time, the more I can knock out, the more it makes us more efficient.
Very cool. Well, you've given a lot of really good information today. One question I always ask practice owners that come on, because I've got a lot of people out there that are considering practices, starting a practice, building a practice, buying a practice, etc. If you were to tomorrow have sold your practice and you were going to go get another one, you know, whether it be an acquisition or startup or whatever it would be, what would be your strategy about getting into your next practice?
A, I would never do that again. But B, you know, I would look. I would definitely acquire. I wouldn't start up. You know, if that was the main question. I think, you know, if you look for the right deal, I would look. You know, if it was me or if it was my son that said, Dad, I want to go buy a dental practice, what should I look for? I'd say, here's what you do. You look for an underperforming practice of an older dentist who's looking to retire. Someone who's cut back, who's let those cracking MODBLs go for the last 3 or 5 years, that's maybe producing or 500,000, but that you see the potential is there to be producing the big numbers. You go in there, you negotiate the heck out of it, you get a good deal, and you go in and you just kick butt. You turn it around. You start diagnosing, treatment planning like you are. You go in and you train that staff to the best of your ability. Get any help that you need. Call your dad if you need to. And that's what I would be looking for. If I was to do it all over again, that's what I'd be looking for.
Great answer. So is there anything that we didn't cover today in regards to, being a more efficient doctor, being able to build a practice that you love, that is, like you said, you have 25 answers to every question. And, we've got to be broad because we're speaking to, so many dentists over their earbuds, and there are so many specific answers based off of each person's specific situation. But is there anything that is, a broad thing we didn't talk about that would be, that'd be helpful for people?
Not really. I think, if I had to boil it down, what my advice would be to, number one, is figure out what you want. Figure out your vision. Where do you want to take that thing? And don't let people tell you can't do it. I mean, I had so many people when I wrote down my vision, 10 years ago, saying, hey, I wanted to work this much. I wanted to work 3 days a week, take this much time off. And I didn't want to do it at the expense of anything else. I think a lot of doctors think, well, I could work 3 days, but I'm only going to bring home 150,000, or I could kill myself and make a really nice income.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are not the choices. That might be what you think are the choices, but I'm telling you, it can be done. You figure out what you want, make a plan to get there. If you need help, get help. Don't let anybody tell you can't.
A very special thanks to Justin for joining us today. We can all use a little more time in our life to focus on the things other than business. And Dr. Justin has devoted his life to helping dentists reclaim their work-life balance. As a bonus for today, Dr. Justin has generously shared his free report, 5 Things You Don't Need to Have for a Successful Practice. You'll definitely find a few of his suggestions counterintuitive, but his results speak for themselves. I really recommend you guys pick this one up. It's really good. So to get the bonus, simply text practice to 33444. Again, that's practice to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the US. You'll also receive updates on the latest episodes of Start Your Dental Practice, helpful tips for owning and running a practice, and promotional opportunities direct to your inbox. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you liked the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.